My story began on the dark streets of Philadelphia, where the name Emma Davis meant nothing but a scrawny girl trying to make ends meet. I grew up in Kensington between alleys smelling of wet asphalt and the distant echo of sirens. My fists learned to speak before my voice, defending me from boys who found it amusing to tease the daughter of an absent father. At 16 I found old Mickey's gym, a smelly hole of sweat and cracked leather, but for me it was a temple. There, I learned that boxing wasn't just about getting it right, it was about holding on. Like the video and tell us which state you're watching from. In the gym, the looks of the other fighters weighed more than the punching bags. "Little girl, this isn't for you," said Tony, a middleweight with scars that seemed to tell more stories than his mouth. I ignored it, but every word was a punch that I kept in my chest. Mickey, with his voice hoarse from cigarettes, was the only one who saw something in me. "You've got iron in your heart, girl," he muttered as he tied my bandages. "But iron needs fire to turn into steel." My first fight was in a basement in South Philly, with flashing light bulbs and a crowd screaming for blood. My heart was beating so loudly that I could barely hear the bell. I faced a girl named Rosa, twice my size, with eyes that seemed to swallow me. Every punch from her made my body tremble, but I refused to fall. As I lifted my guard, I felt the warmth of blood running down my nose and something stirred up, an old anger mixed with pride. That night, I won on points, but it wasn't just the fight I had won. Mickey pulled me by the arm, his eyes shining in the dim light. "You don't give up, Emma. That's what makes you dangerous." The crowd was still screaming my name as I left, fists throbbing but lighthearted. For the first time, I felt that Philadelphia could be mine. The road there was not easy. My mother worked double shifts in a cafeteria, and I saw the fatigue in her eyes, as if life had stolen her colors. I promised myself that boxing would be my way out, not only from Kensington but from being nobody. Every workout, every punch was a promise, for her, for me, for the city that never believed in girls like me. Mickey's gym became my home, but Philadelphia wasn't so welcoming outside those walls. The streets reminded me at every corner that I was small, that I didn't belong. One night, coming back from practice, I was cornered by two guys in an alley. "Where's your courage now, boxer?" one of them scoffed, his breath reeking of beer. My heart raced, but I raised my fist. I didn't fight, I ran. Shame burned more than any punch. The next day I told Mickey. He didn't laugh, he didn't judge me. He just handed me a pair of old gloves and said, "The ring is the only place where you control fear. Outside of it, you learn to survive." Those words stayed with me, but so did the doubt. Was I really made of iron or just pretending? In the gym, I started training harder, as if each punch could erase that alley from my memory. My next fight was against a veteran named Carla Cabarrosos. She had a reputation for knocking down rookies in the first round. In the locker room, as I tied my boots, I felt the weight of her nickname. My breath trembled, and the mirror reflected a girl who looked smaller than I wanted to be. When the bell rang, Carla came like thunder, and I took a hook that made the world go round. I felt the cold floor against my cheek. The crowd roared, but I heard Mickey's voice in the corner of the ring. "Get up, Emma. You are more than that." My body ached, but something inside me refused to stay on the floor. I stood up, my eyes fixed on hers, and returned a right hand that made her retreat. I didn't win that fight, but I survived the 3 rounds. Philadelphia began to whisper my name even in defeat. Back in the gym, Tony, the middleweight, gave me a nod of respect for the first time. "You're stubborn, girl," he said with a half smile. That was more than a victory. It was a sign that I was starting to dig my place even if it hurt. My mother, seeing me with a black eye, just held my face and said, "You're my fighter." That phrase carried me more than any trophy. The following months were a blur of sweat and determination. Mickey put me on a regimen that seemed to want to break me. Running at 5 in the morning down the stairs of the art museum, punching bags that made my wrists red, and sparring with guys who didn't take it easy. "Do you want to be a legend? Then endure hell," he said as I spat blood into the bucket. The gym smelled of liniment and old leather, but for me, it was the perfume of my transformation. I started to attract glances. Not only from the fighters but from scouts who appeared in the smaller fights. One of them, a guy named Vince in a cheap suit and a cigar in his mouth, approached me after a workout. "You have grit, girl, but you lack polish. Want to go far? Call me." He left a crumpled card in my hand. Mickey didn't like it. "These guys just want your blood and your money," he grunted, but I put the card away. Ambition burned in me like a fever. My next fight was in a bigger gym with blinding spotlights and a crowd that couldn't stop screaming. My opponent, Lena, was fast with jabs that looked like bee stings. Her every blow was a test, but I had learned to dance in the ring. I dodged, counterattacked, and in the second round I landed an uppercut that made her stagger. The crowd exploded and I felt the city pulse with me. After the fight, Vince was there, applauding as if he owned me. "You're gold, Emma. We're going to take you to the top." His words were honey, but his eyes were cold. Mickey pulled me aside, his face hard. "Listen, girl. Philadelphia loves you because you really are. Don't let these leeches change you." I nodded, but the idea of top flashed in my mind like a neon sign. That night, lying on my narrow bed, I heard the sound of rain beating on the window. My mother slept in the next room, exhausted, and I knew that every punch I threw was for her. But it was also for me. I wanted Philadelphia to see me, to love me, to fear me. And, for the first time, I believed that this was possible. Fame started small, like a murmur. After the fight with Lena, my name appeared on boxing blogs and local newspapers. "The Iron Girl from Kensington," they called me. I laughed at the nickname, but deep down I loved it. The streets of Philadelphia, which had once swallowed me up, now seemed to recognize me. Even the guys in the alley stopped teasing me. But with the light came the shadow, and I wasn't ready for it. Vince began to appear more, with promises of contracts and televised fights. He took me to a fancy dinner party, where the waiter looked at me like I didn't belong. "Emma, you could be the next big thing," he said, cutting through a rare steak. "But you need to trust me." His eyes sparkled like a predator's, and something in my stomach turned. Mickey was right, Vince wanted my blood. In the gym, the pressure increased. Mickey pitted me against tougher sparring partners, and every workout felt like a war. One afternoon I was punched that cracked my eyebrow. Blood dripped on the floor, and Mickey just said, "Get up. You've bled before." But outside the ring, I felt him more distant, as if he knew I was slipping into Vince's world. My next fight was against a state champion, Diana Farah Torres. It was a wall with hilts that looked like hammers. In the locker room, as I laced my gloves, I heard Vince whisper on the phone, "She's going to be our gold mine." That hit me like a punch. I wasn't just Emma anymore, I was a product. When I entered the ring, the crowd was screaming, but I felt alone. Diana knocked me down in the first round. The world was in slow motion, the roar of the crowd muffled. But when I saw Mickey's face in the corner shouting, "You're Iron, Emma," I stood up. I fought like my life depended on it, and in the last round I landed a hook that made Diana fall. Philadelphia exploded, and I felt the iron in my heart turn into something warmer, more alive. The victory over Diana put me in the spotlight. Suddenly I was the darling of Philadelphia. People who had never spoken to me now stopped me on the street asking for selfies. But fame had claws. Vince dragged me to interviews, events, and meetings with sponsors. I smiled for the cameras, but each flash seemed to burn a piece of me. "You're a star, Emma," he'd say, but I felt like I was losing myself. Mickey started avoiding me in the gym. He still trained with me, but his advice was short, his eyes distant. One night I confronted him. "Why are you like this, Mick? Isn't that what you wanted for me?" He sighed, scratching his thin beard. "I want you alive, girl. Not a puppet in a suit." Those words hurt more than any punch because I knew he was right. My mother also noticed the change. She found me staring into the void in the kitchen, holding a cup of cold coffee. "Emma, who are you fighting for now?" she asked, her voice soft but heavy. I didn't know how to answer. In the ring I was invincible, but outside of it I was drowning. Philadelphia loved me, but I didn't know who I was anymore. The next fight was to be televised, against a fighter from New York named Sasha Blade Cole. She was known for her speed and ruthlessness. In training I was unfocused, and I was punched that almost erased me. Tony, who now treated me as an equal, helped me up. "You're fighting with an empty heart, Emma. Find him again." His words echoed as I stared at my reflection in the gym mirror, my face scarred by bruises and doubts. The night before the fight, I dreamed about the alley where I ran from those guys. But in the dream I didn't run away, I fought. I woke up with my heart racing, feeling the iron come back. I knew that the fight with Sasha wasn't just for the title. It was for me, for Emma, who still believed that it could be more than a product. The day of the fight with Sasha came like a storm. The gymnasium was packed, with Philadelphia flags waving and the air charged with electricity. In the locker room, the muffled sound of the crowd sounded like a war drum. As he tied my gloves, Vince walked in, all fake smiles. "Today is the day, Emma. You're going to make history." But I didn't look at him. My eyes were on Mickey, who just nodded as if to say, "You know who you are." In the ring, Sasha was a blur of movement. His jabs came like stabs, fast and precise. In the first round, she opened a cut on my cheek, and the blood ran hot down my face. The crowd screamed, but I could only hear my breathing, heavy, determined. "You're iron," I'd repeat to myself, blocking a punch and returning a right hand. In the second round, Sasha cornered me on the ropes. His eyes shone with cruel confidence. "You're just hype, girl," she whispered before landing a hook that made my legs weaken. I fell, the world spinning, but Mickey's voice cut through the chaos. "Get up, Emma. Philadelphia is with you." And then I saw my mother in the audience, her eyes filled with tears and pride. I stood up, my body screaming in pain but my heart on fire. In the third round I found a loophole. Sasha let her guard down for a second and I landed a hook that sent her tumbling. The crowd erupted, the sound so loud it seemed to shake the gym. Sasha stood up, but she was shaken. I knew that this was my moment. When the final bell rang, the judges gave me the victory. Philadelphia roared my name and I raised my fists, feeling the weight of every punch that brought me there. But as the crowd celebrated, I saw Vince in the corner talking on the phone, already planning his next move. And I knew that the Real fight was not over yet. Being champion was like carrying a crown of thorns. Philadelphia embraced me, but each hug came with a price. Vince put me in commercials, photo shoots, and endless interviews. I was the Iron Girl, but I felt like a puppet. In the gym, training became rarer, replaced by commitments that I barely understood. Mickey looked at me with a mixture of pride and sadness, as if he saw a daughter walking away. One night, after a book signing, I found my mother waiting for me on the way out. She held my hand, her fingers calloused from years of cleaning tables. "Emma, are you happy?" she asked. I wanted to say yes, but the words didn't come. The truth was that the victory over Sasha didn't fill me as I had hoped. The iron in my heart seemed to rust. In high school, Tony became my safe haven. He didn't talk much, but he made me laugh with stories of old fights. One afternoon, while we were resting after a sparring match, he said, "You're fighting the wrong fight, Emma. The ring is yours, not the guy in the suit." That stayed in my head like a seed planted on dry land. Vince scheduled my next fight, a title defense against a Mexican fighter named Valeria Storm Ruiz. She was a force of nature with an impeccable record and fists that looked like thunder. In training, I was slow, distracted. Mickey stopped sparring and pulled me aside. "You're letting him erase you, girl. Remember why you started." His words were a slap, but also a reminder. That night, I went to the art museum where I raced with Mickey in the old days. I sat on the stairs, the cold wind cutting through my face, and looked out over the city. Philadelphia was shining, but I knew I needed to find the Emma who walked those stairs for the first time. The fight with Valeria would be more than a title, it would be my chance to recover. The fight with Valeria was in Las Vegas, far from my Philadelphia. The gym looked like a circus with blinding lights and a crowd that didn't know me. In the locker room, Vince was frantic, talking about betting and sponsorships. I could hardly hear. My eyes were on Mickey, who tied my gloves with steady hands. "This fight is yours, Emma. Not theirs," he said, his voice low but heavy as lead. Valeria was different from any opponent. Tall, with long arms and a gaze that seemed to cross you. When the bell rang, it came like a wave, its punches quick and relentless. In the first round, I took a right hand that made my ear ring. Blood flowed from my mouth and the crowd roared, thirsty. But I stood my ground, dancing on tiptoe, waiting for my chance. In the second round, I found an opening. Valeria hesitated, and I hit a hook that made her retreat. But she was tireless, coming back with a fury that almost knocked me down. In the corner, Mickey shouted, "Use your head, Emma. She's strong, but you're smart." My breathing was heavy, the sweat burned in my eyes, but I felt the iron coming back, stronger than ever. In the third round, the fight turned into a war. Each punch I threw was answered with another, and the ring seemed to shrink with our violence. The crowd was on its feet, screaming, but I could only see Valeria, her eyes burning with the same determination as mine. When the round was over, we were both exhausted, but neither gave in. Back in the locker room, between rounds, I saw my mother on the TV broadcast, holding a sign with my name on it. My heart tightened. I knew I couldn't let her down or myself. The fight was far from over, but I was ready to weather the storm. The following rounds were a test of will. Valeria was like a mirror. Every blow I took, she returned with equal force. In the fifth round, she hit me with an uppercut that made my vision blur. I fell, the cold ground against my back, and for a second I thought about staying there. But Mickey's voice cut through the noise. "You're Philadelphia, Emma. Get up." I stood up, my body screaming but my heart on fire. In the sixth round, I started reading Valeria's moves. She was strong but predictable. I dodged a hook and landed a sequence that made her stumble. The crowd roared, and for the first time I felt like Las Vegas was with me. But Valeria did not fall. She came back, her eyes sparkling, and hit me with a punch that almost ripped my soul out. Between rounds, Mickey held my face, his eyes hard but full of faith. "You're not fighting for a belt, girl. You're fighting for who you are." Those words rekindled something in me. I wasn't just Iron Girl. I was Emma Davis, the girl who survived Kensington, who ran down the stairs of the museum, who promised her mother a better life. In the 7th round, I went all out. Every punch I threw was for every humiliation, every doubt, every night I cried alone. Valeria finally fell, and the referee stopped the fight. The crowd exploded, but I barely heard it. My eyes met Mickey and he smiled, a rare smile that said it all. I was champion, but more than that, I was myself again. When I lifted the belt, I felt the weight of each choice that brought me there. But I also felt Vince, in the corner, already planning how to profit from my victory. And he knew that the real battle was yet to come. I returned to Philadelphia as a hero. The streets of Kensington, which had once spat me out, now embraced me. Children ran after me, asking for autographs, and old men on the corners waved as if I were theirs. But the victory had a bittersweet taste. Vince was more present than ever, scoring fights, commercials, and even a documentary about my life. "You're an icon, Emma," he'd say, but his words sounded like chains. Mickey was different. He was still training with me, but there was a shadow on his face. One night, after a workout, he pulled me to the corner of the gym. "You're letting him swallow you, girl. Philadelphia loves you because you really are. It doesn't become a product." I wanted to argue, but I saw the truth in his eyes. I was losing myself in the glare of fame. My mother felt it too. She took me to dinner at the diner where she worked, and between mouthfuls of apple pie said, "You've always been my champion, Emma. You don't need a belt for that." Her words hurt because I knew I was fighting for her, but also for something bigger, a place in history. In the gym, Tony challenged me to sparring. "It shows that you're still hungry," he teased. During the fight, I felt the old fire return. Each punch was a reminder of who I was before Vince, before fame. When we finished, he laughed. "Iron Girl is back." But I knew I had to make a choice. That night, I tore up Vince's card and threw it in the trash. I called Mickey and said, "I want to fight again, but in my own way." He laughed, his voice hoarse, full of pride. "That's how you do it, girl?" Philadelphia was still calling me, and I was ready to answer. Without Vince, the world seemed lighter but also scarier. He did not accept my decision. "You need me, Emma," he shouted into the phone, his voice full of venom. "Without me, you're just another Kensington girl." I hung up, but his words echoed. I knew he wouldn't give up easily. He had contacts, money, and a thirst for control that I underestimated. In the gym, Mickey and I hatched a plan. "Let's do it your way," he said, his eyes shining with old energy. We scheduled a local fight, no spotlights, no cameras, just me, the ring, and Philadelphia. My opponent would be a rookie named Jade with hungry eyes like mine years ago. I wanted to give her what Mickey gave me, a chance to prove who she was. The fight was in a small gym with the smell of mold and creaking chairs. The crowd was small but passionate, screaming my name as if I were family. Jade was fast but inexperienced. In the 2nd round, I landed a right hand that made her retreat, but I didn't want to knock her out. I wanted her to learn as I did. When I won, I hugged her. "Keep fighting," I whispered. She smiled, her eyes teary. After the match, Vince showed up. "Do you think you can cut me like that?" he said, his face red with anger. "I made you, Emma." Mickey stood between us, his voice steady. "She made herself, you vulture." The crowd booed Vince, and for the first time I felt Philadelphia as my shield. That night, I walked the streets of Kensington, the cold air clearing my mind. I didn't need Vince or Las Vegas or spotlights. I had Philadelphia, my mother, Mickey, and the iron in my heart. But something told me that Vince wasn't the type to accept defeat. The next few days were calm, but the calm felt like silence before a storm. Rumors began to circulate. Vince was spreading lies, saying that I used illegal substances, that my victories were bought. Local newspapers, which had previously called me a hero, now ran headlines with question marks. Iron Girl or fraud? My mother threw the newspaper in the trash, but I saw the pain in her eyes. In the gym, the atmosphere changed. Some fighters looked at me sideways, and even Tony seemed hesitant. "You know the truth, Emma," he said, but his voice didn't have the same strength. Mickey was the only one who didn't falter. "They want to break you, girl. Show that you are stronger." He scheduled a fight to clear my name, against a veteran named Monica Hammer Hayes. The preparation was brutal. I trained until my muscles screamed, but the doubts were worse than the pain. What if the city that raised me now knocked me down? One night, I found an anonymous letter on my doorstep. "Give up, or we'll expose everything." The paper trembled in my hands, but I threw it in the trash. I was no longer the girl who ran away from alleys. On the night of the fight, the gym was packed, but the air was heavy, full of whispers. Monica was an experienced fighter with punches that looked like jackhammers. In the first round, she hit me with a hook that made my head spin. The crowd was silent, waiting for my downfall. But I stood up, eyes fixed on hers, and returned a cross that made her retreat. In the end, I won by unanimous decision. The crowd was screaming my name, but I knew the battle with Vince was just beginning. As I was leaving the ring, I saw a man in the crowd holding a camera, his eyes fixed on me. Something in his eyes made me cringe. He worked for Vince, and I knew the next fight wasn't going to be in the ring. The days after the fight with Monica were a whirlwind. Vince stepped up his campaign, leaking edited videos of old workouts, insinuating that I cheated. Philadelphia was divided, some defended me, others doubted. My mother cried when she saw the headlines, and it broke my heart. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone, Emma," she said, but I knew I did. Not for them, but for me. I decided to face Vince head-on. I scheduled a press conference, something I never wanted to do. On stage, under lights that seemed to burn, I stared at the reporters. "I want the truth," I said, my voice steady despite the lump in my throat. "Test my blood, my urine, anything. I'm clean. I always have been." The crowd murmured, and I saw Mickey in the audience, his eyes shining with pride. Vince showed up at the press conference, with his impeccable suit and a venomous smile. "You're a fake, Emma," he said, holding an envelope he claimed had proof. But before he could open it, Tony took the stage holding a cell phone. "I recorded it, Emma," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. "He tried to bribe me to lie about you." The video was projected, showing Vince offering money to false testimony. The crowd erupted in boos, and Vince ran away humiliated. That night, Philadelphia embraced me again. The headlines changed. Iron Girl proves her truth. In the gym, Mickey pulled me into a rare hug. "You didn't just win, girl. You have conquered." My mother was waiting for me at home with a chocolate cake, her smile brighter than any belt. I walked up the stairs of the art museum one last time, the Philadelphia wind blowing in my face. I looked at the city, now mine, and felt the iron in my heart shine like steel. I wasn't just a wrestler. I was Emma Davis, the girl who took on the world and won not only in the ring but in life. And Philadelphia, with all its scars, sang my name.